Momentum.
Real men, real talk.
Real change.
Hi, welcome to another show of Momentum. It's great to be back with you guys. And we have with us back again this week, Leigh Wilmington. Leigh describes himself as a Bible believing scientist. And with her show, some of the stuff he came out with blew me away. It's amazing. And and people who believe in God, we don't often get a lot of support in that view. And to have somebody like Leigh come along who's has done lots of research, he's got lots of answers. It's so encouraging, for us who have that. He is from just outside Canberra at Fernley Park, and so he's joining us on the show. But just before we go back to Leigh, can I just remind you guys about momentumaustralia.org? That's our website. Give us feedback, ask questions. All our podcasts, we're almost at 200 shows. And so our podcasts are all on there. And if you feel like supporting this ministry, please, we'd love you to do that. We run lean and mean at Momentum Australia, which is all good. Momentum Caroline's available. It's 1-800-000-MEN. We're so fortunate to have that number so men can easily remember it. Men are not good at remembering phone numbers. And that's available 7 days a week, 9 a.m., 11 p.m. If you want a safe and confidential conversation, you don't have a mate to talk to, please reach out to our Caroline and have that safe conversation. Also, YouTube, TikTok, all those. So we're back with Jerry.
We are. Hello.
With Jerry, and we're back with Leigh.
Support Momentum. Go right ahead.
Yes, absolutely. Did I must say that?
We might have said it again.
Okay, that's fine. That's cool. So, Leigh, give us a refresh on what we talked about last time, 2 weeks ago. Some of the subject for amazing things I had never heard before.
Yeah, so last show we were looking at the difference between evolution and creation, and we picked on science a fair bit last show, but we also need to just have a little relook at creation and our view of the creation story, because the first 5 books of the Bible, including Genesis, are all attributed to Moses. So the whole story of creation is actually being passed down word of mouth until we get to Moses. So we're talking through all the time pre-flood. Noah and his sons were the only custodians of that information through the flood, and then up until the time through Abraham, up until the time of Moses. So if Moses is indeed the person who wrote the first 5 books of the Bible, we have to say that is all word of mouth, though I firmly believe that the Holy Spirit was involved in the writing of those books, and they are the inherent, non-errant version of the Word of God. Yes. So I don't have any problems with the factual things there, but just remember that it was written for people who didn't have telescopes or microscopes, didn't know about DNA, didn't know a lot of things that we've learned in science now. So the books were written from a fairly fundamental level of understanding.
Yes. So
you won't hear things about particular events because they weren't something that the people of the time understood.
Yeah.
So they're written to be remembered and passed on rather than being scientific actual facts, sort of thing. So we looked at evolution, and I outlined the 3 major problems that I see with evolution, or 3 that I feel are easy to describe to people as the fundamental problems of evolution. Mm-hmm. And one of them was that you can't create fossils slowly. So fossils can only be created in major flood events, not in the normal annual flood that happens every year. It has to be a major flood event. And one of those we pointed out was in recent history was Mount St. Helens. Yeah. Where actually the eruption of Mount St. Helens created fossils. We looked also at the question of where is your clock when trying to debate as to how old the Earth is, and trying to debunk whether it was 6 days or not, and saying that the theory of relativity created by Einstein or discovered by Einstein says that if you put a clock next to the entire mass of the universe, instantaneously after the Big Bang, or whatever we want to say created the whole universe, that clock would still be in day 7, just because of the huge amount of mass that you're putting that clock next to, because clocks slow down when they get closer to big, massive objects. Indeed, the clock on the International Space Station runs quicker than clocks here on the Earth.
Is that
By a
right?
small fraction, ever so small fraction, but they run slightly faster up on the International Space Station because they're away from the Earth.
Further away.
That is
And then we
amazing.
looked at, yes. They actually took an experiment. They took 3 atomic clocks. They left one on the ground, and they put one each in 2 aircraft. And they flew one westwards and one eastwards. And when the 2 aircraft landed back at where they started, the 3 clocks were different.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was just because the movement away from the gravitational body and all the rest of it. So clocks do change time depending on where they are located.
Yeah.
And then we looked at rock dating. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, in the context of the universe, I mean, that's exponentially more, isn't it?
Huge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah,
This is the huge amount of mass.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you can go next to. Like going next to a black hole. It just slows down so much when you go close to a black hole. Not that we've ever done it. And then there's rock dating. And the bad science, I believe, of rock dating. And I do apologise to those who are in that field. But the assumptions and the requirements of having to supply a date when you submit a rock sample, or otherwise you won't get it analysed, just proves how poor that science is.
Yeah. I mean that's mind blowing in itself. I was totally unaware that was the case. That you have to tell them the answer before they'll do the research. Just
Yes, the analysis.
Sense.
Yes, exactly.
What's the point?
So the theory of evolution is actually built on a number of scientific facts, and they've tried to piece it together into the theory of evolution. And as we finished up last time, the reason we still teach the theory of evolution, even with all its problems, is that the theory of evolution is the only non-God answer that science has.
Yes. Yes.
And one of the things that I've started with my training in physics and the things that I've read and all the rest of it is come up with an alternate theory, because we've got the theory of evolution. So I'm just proposing an alternate theory that fits all those scientific facts together, and actually I believe is a better fit for all the science that evolution uses to prove evolution.
Right.
And that is the theory of a meteor strike. The idea that the Earth actually was, before the flood, a larger Earth with a more universal climate and all the rest of it, and that when the flood occurred, a major strike on the opposite side of the planet occurred.
Right.
This would then cause, so if a major chunk of the Earth was taken out from one side, the rest of the crust on the Earth would break apart and try and reform around the molten core.
Right.
So suddenly all the plate tectonics can occur at one time. We've got the idea that maybe that chunk came off and formed the moon. And yes, scientific analysis has found that the materials that make up the moon is the same materials that made up the Earth. That you've got things like the pterodactyl, which is one of the flying dinosaurs that they've discovered bones for, could not fly in today's atmosphere.
Oh.
The atmosphere has to be denser for that animal to have flown. And the way to have a denser atmosphere is to have a larger Earth.
Ah.
So you've got then the idea of... Oh, I've lost it again. Sorry about this. Yeah, so the pterodactyls couldn't fly in our current... So you've got a larger Earth, and the idea there that would then have a denser atmosphere.
Yes.
So it could fly in a denser atmosphere, and then you have the idea that that denser atmosphere, all the plants and everything would be watered by the atmosphere. So you didn't have a rain cycle before the flood.
Mm.
So when Noah was told to build an ark because it's going to rain for 40 days, what we don't have in the Bible is Noah's answer, what is rain?
Exactly.
He may not have even known what rain was when he obeyed God's command to build the ark. Now, some people have said, it couldn't have been a meteor strike, because a meteor strike would be an extinction event. it would cause every living thing on the earth to die. Well, guess what? Everything did die in the flood of Noah, except, what was it? 8 people and a whole bunch of animals on an ark, only because they had obeyed God and built the ark.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would have been a total extinction event.
Yeah, it's true.
People complain about the fact that how could the flood occur? Where's all the water gone that flooded the earth? And if you position the globe, if you have a globe and turn it so that you're over the center of the Pacific Ocean, you can only see around the edge what is called the Ring of Fire. Australia on one side, Japan, North America and South America, right at the edge. Almost half the planet in just the Pacific Ocean is water. And in some places, that water is over 5 kilometres deep. So if you want to know where all the water is, also the water was absorbed with the water and carbon dioxide to create rock, carnivorous rock. I'm getting the name wrong there, but anyway, when you mix carbon dioxide and water, you can create rock out of it. So if you also look at the question of, well, was there a flood or not? Every ancient culture has a flood story.
Wow.
It's true.
Yeah.
There is no question that there wasn't a flood. You can't find an ancient culture that doesn't have a flood story in it somewhere.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that itself is crazy, isn't it? Now, we're going to take another short break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about science's fundamental assumptions when we come back after this short break. Hi, we're back with Momentum, and we have Leigh Wilmington. Leigh, you're amazing. The amount of stuff that you've got in that head of yours, and it's all based around the research. And even Jerry has been quiet. It's really quite crazy because we're just in awe in what you've been talking about. So in this final section, Leigh, talk to us about some of the fundamental assumptions that people who study science make and why they're good, bad, or indifferent.
The main one that I want to bring to people's attention is that the whole basis of science is the main assumption that as things are today is as they have always been.
Right.
What they're trying to do is say that the parameters, the scientific parameters that we see today, go back in time. So we can go back our hundreds or millions or thousands of years or whatever, because everything is the same today as it's always been.
Right.
That assumption is broken in so many ways. Sorry, say again?
Like the way you measure things would always have been the same.
Yeah, the way you measure things. Or I'll give you some specific examples here of how things have changed in time, which makes it impossible for you to go and make assumptions back in time, because things have changed. So let's start with the first one, the most recent one. 15 years ago, a Jupiter-sized planet flew through our solar system.
Wow.
Why didn't we hear about it? They kept it really quiet. Because when they first saw this object flying towards us in the southern skies, they thought, I wonder what it could be, because they didn't see it change motion or anything, so they didn't know how massive it was, how big it was.
Yeah.
They reckoned it was about Jupiter's size, and they thought, well, let's plug it into our little track. And NASA has a track that tracks all the satellites and all the orbits of the planets and all the rest of it. So they plugged it into there and said, let's see what it does. Now, it looks about the size of a Jupiter. Well, let's plug in the mass of a white dwarf, which is what a white dwarf star is, what our sun will eventually deteriorate into. When our sun eventually blows away all its nuclear fission material, it will become a dormant white dwarf. So they said, all right, let's plug in the mass of a white dwarf and track its passage through our solar system. And what they found is that because the sun and the white dwarf were about the same mass, when they passed each other, they moved in a way of a sort of a dance around each other, around the common centre of mass between the two objects. So our sun moved position when it went by, when this white dwarf went by. So much so that the Earth's orbit became elliptical and moved the Earth out of the habitable zone.
Oh,
Thankfully, that planet was not a white dwarf, because it's been through, as I said, 15 years ago, went through, and it was only a planet, not a star.
right, right.
So the sun didn't move as much. The planet wasn't as massive as what they plugged in initially.
Yeah.
And so the sun only had a little wobble, not a big wobble. But it still affected Earth's orbit.
Wow.
And for those people out there who are talking about global warming and all the rest of it, I'm sorry, but global warming is not created by humans, and humans can't fix it, because no matter what we do, we can't put the Earth back into the orbit it was 20 years ago.
Ah, right.
The Earth's orbit has actually changed. They kept it really quiet because what can you do about it?
Mm.
If there's a white dwarf heading towards us, even if we threw the entire Earth at it, we wouldn't be able to change this white dwarf's trajectory.
Wow.
There's nothing humans could have done about that. Now, they kept it really quiet, and some poor astronomers had some very early deaths on their plans because they wanted to keep it really quiet, because there's no point panicking people about it, because there's nothing they could do about it. So they kept it really quiet. But there are some images from the SOHO satellite. There is some security camera footage that shows it. There's some YouTube footage about some people messing around with some Polaroid sunglasses. And you know, if you turn two Polaroid sunglasses 90 degrees to each other, it blacks everything out. You actually can hold two sunglasses up and look at the sun. These guys on YouTube were caught doing that and saying, what, there's two suns up there, at the time that this planet flew by. So that's something that's happened recently that has changed Earth forever.
Wow.
And indeed, I can see how Armageddon and all the rest of it, the Earth's orbit is going to deteriorate further and further just because of that event that went through. But if we go back in time a bit further and look at the speed of light, the speed of light, when it was first measured by Galileo, he used a technique that was just uncovering lanterns. It wasn't a really great technique, but he knew his technique wasn't perfect. So he said, here's the speed of light, and it was above the 3 by 10 to the 8 meters per second. We're now below, we now measure speed of light below 3 by 10 to the 8 meters per second. It was above that, and he said, I know this is inaccurate, so I put rather wide error bars around it. It could be plus or minus this amount.
Right.
But those error bars were still above the current speed of today's light.
Ah.
When it was next measured, it was measured lower than what Galileo measured, and the error bars were in the bottom half, but those error bars also did not include today's reading of the speed of light. Indeed, every time we have officially measured the speed of light, it's been slower.
Oh.
And so the question is, what do you do with that data? Now, you can just say, oh, Galileo got it wrong. And indeed, if you look up Wikipedia, it says that Galileo's measurement was inconsistent or whatever. So they just throw the measurement out. You could try and draw a straight line through these results, or it actually looks like it's more of an exponential curve.
Right.
And so it's quite possible that the speed of light in Jesus's time was twice the speed of light today. Now, in a whole heap of physics, including radioactive decay, which we use for dating things, uses the speed of light in the formula.
Ah.
So if the speed of light was, say, twice the speed of light it is today at Jesus's time, how does this whole affect how big the universe is and all the rest of it? The speed of light was traveling faster back in time, and it's been slowing down as it's getting closer to us. It changes the whole view of the universe and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So, of course, we're measuring the speed of light more often, and we're not seeing those changes as drastic. It seems to be tapering out to a constant speed, but there's quite the possibility that the speed of light has been slowing down. Going back in time, why did every single calendar around the world change at about the same time? The whole pre-Christ time frame, everything was built on a 360-day year. 12 12 months of 30 days. And then all of a sudden, every society around the world had to change their calendar. And we're now on the Julian calendar with a 365.25 day year sort of thing.
Yeah.
So something happened at that point, and I'd like to probably suggest something had happened there. We've got biblical records of the long day of Joshua. And you have to bend your mind a little bit to think about how you could have the earth still spinning, but the sun to stand still. And you can actually process the planet. You can actually tumble the planet to make the sun stay in the same place while the earth is still rotating. It's actually a neat tumbling trick. And you think, well, how is that possible? Until you go and look at Chinese mythology. Chinese mythology has the legend of the long night.
Oh.
At the same time as Joshua had the long day.
Wow. That's amazing.
So we come then back to the thing about how this is possible. And one of the things is that you've got the writings of Gulliver's Travels. Now, Gulliver's Travels was British satire. And we had the visit to the giants, and we had the visit to the little people, and we had the visit to the astronomers. We're not running out of time, are we?
No, keep going.
No.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So we had the visit to the astronomers. And the astronomers boasted that they knew about the 2 moons of Mars. And that one of them was fairly dark, and one of them actually went the wrong direction around Mars. It actually rotates the opposite direction to every other moon in the solar system. And this was before telescopes were invented that were powerful enough to see Mars and its moons. So where did the writer of Gulliver's Travels get that from? He got it from mythological records of people who actually saw Mars close up firsthand, because Mars and Earth were in resonant orbits. Earth was 360 days, Mars was 720 days. And Mars regularly flew by the Earth. That's why Mars is the goddess of war. Because as it flew by, it would cause massive earthquakes and would have super king high tides. Indeed, every ancient civilization did not build under 500 feet above sea level, because the sea would rise that much when Mars flew by. And so you can see how, with Mars regularly flying by the Earth, you could have an impact that caused the meteor strike. It could have been a third moon of Mars that actually impacted the Earth. You can see how you can cause the Earth to tumble for the long day of Joshua. And then some event has occurred that finally flung Mars out into a more circular orbit where it is today. But there are these mythological records of people actually having eyewitness accounts of seeing Mars and its moons with the naked eye.
This conversation is absolutely amazing, Leigh. I'm just so thankful for what you've brought to the table. And if all it does is make people more inquisitive and look for better answers than what they have at the minute, that's a really, really good thing. And certainly, Jerry and I would say, I'm Jerry to speak for himself, but we would say, guys, think about these things. Think about this in terms of, the impact of God in our world, and what God says happened. It's more and more obvious that it did happen. Yeah. So I think that's amazing. And so thank you for your time, Leigh. It's been a great conversation, guys. If you want to do some research,
yes,
you're most certainly welcome to do that. I'd encourage you to do that. The more we know about our world and how our world works in the context of God is an amazing thing. So thank you, Leigh.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's really cool. And so, guys, don't forget our website, momentumaustralia.org. Please have a look. Don't forget that. And also the care line. Don't do life on your own. Safe and confidential conversation, 1-800-000-636. That's 1-800-000-MEN. And we'll talk to you next week.
Bye for now.
Momentum. Real men, real talk. Real change.